Third episode is Death the Kid and his weapons, Liz and Patty. And Kid is pretty much Lord Death's son, so he has a lot of responsibility on his shoulders. And he's pretty much going to take over his dad's position later in life. And he also has 2 weapons, which means he has to collect double the amount of souls in order to turn his weapons into Death's size. So he has twice the amount of work to do, but apparently it wouldn't be too hard if it wasn't for his OCD tendencies, where he loves everything perfect and symmetrical, and if it's not, it drives him nuts. Completely nuts. And it's so funny. It's some of the best comedic relief of the show when he totally spazzes out on it. It's great. And you feel bad for him, though, because he's always like, oh, I'm not symmetrical myself, you know, because he has 3 stripes on this side, but not this side. So he himself is not symmetrical like he'd like. Poor guy. But then Liz and Patty are like, oh, you're not garbage, you're not trash, you're the best kid, and they're always supporting him, and he's like, oh, really? You guys really do love me still? And it's like, oh my gosh, it's so cute. When he gets into he's like, really? You don't mind that I'm not symmetrical? And they're like, of course not. It's great. But in this episode, he has to go to the Pyramid of Anubis and defeat the Pharaoh. And at the very end of this episode, he's trying to help Liz and Patty because they had been captured by the Pharaoh, because he went away to do something because he thought it wasn't symmetrical at his house, and he left them there alone. But when he comes back, the Pharaoh's got them, so he frees them and turns them into his guns. And when he does, he can't shoot because he finds out the Pharaoh case that covers the Pharaoh is completely symmetrical, and he can't find it in his heart to shoot something that is symmetrical, which really gets in the way of him completing the mission, and he ends up getting really hurt before he figures out the Pharaoh comes out of the case, and the Pharaoh isn't symmetrical at all, and the kid gets really upset and starts shooting at him away, and he's like, oh, you're a piece of trash, you're not symmetrical, and he completes the mission. But when they get out of the pyramid's completely in shambles, because Kid got a little carried away, and so his dad tells him he has to take away all the Quiche souls he collected on that mission. And Kid's like crying in the corner, oh, why did I do that? Yeah, I'm horrible, but you feel so bad for him, but he's awesome. I know he has a lot of fangirls, and he's just cool, he's just awesome. But as the rest of the show progresses, all these characters come together and meet each other at the school, and they go on missions together, sometimes by themselves, sometimes together, to help Lord Death. And then they have Professor Stein as one of their professors, and they also have Maka's dad, Spirit, who is at Death's side, and he happens to be at the school for Lord Death because he is a weapon for Lord Death. And he's such a womanizer, so Maka never trusts him, and she's like, don't ever call me your daughter, I should never call you my dad because you're da 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 da. And he's always figuring, he's like, Maka, why won't you accept me as your dad? And he always tries his best to. So funny. And there's also Sid, this professor who turned into a zombie, which doesn't completely make sense to me, but he's still pretty cool because he tries to keep all the students in line as best he can, and he helps them a lot. Especially toward the end of the series, they get in all these wars and battles and stuff, and he's pretty cool on those too. Let's see, who else I want to talk about? Well, later in the series, we'll meet some other Death's sides, and of course the main bad guy later on. And then you have two witches who show up. Okay, more than 2 witches, but I'm talking about the main bad villains. One of them's Lucy's character, Medusa. I think she does a great job. And then, oh, Stephanie, what's her name? A voice actress named Stephanie, and I can't remember her last name. Oh, Stephanie Young, that's right. She does Olivier in Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, which is awesome, and she does one of the witches, Arachne, in this show too. She does a good job of that. And then there's all these other characters that come along, and the story has so many characters, but they introduce them at a nice pace so you don't get totally confused. The only character I'm gonna have to say I really, really don't like, and I felt was unneeded in the show. I know there are a lot of fans of this character, but I feel like he didn't need to be put in there. Maybe just because he annoys me, just like he annoys the characters in the show, and that's Excalibur. I just don't know the point of him being in there, maybe for some comic relief or what, but personally, I could do without him. Sorry for all the fans out there. He kind of annoys me, but I still think it's funny when he's like pointing his cane at all of them and stuff. But it's still. I'm sorry, I just don't like Excalibur. I really don't. I think his voice actor does a good job of his character. The character himself, I'm not a fan of. Sorry. Anyways, I'll talk about some more characters. I have to say, my favorite girl character is Tsubaki, like I already told you. That's why I have a plush of her. I still like all the other girl characters. Maka, she's very loyal, and I love her very much. How she can lift her weapon without any problem. And I think Blackstar tries to in one episode, and he's like, "How do you hold this? It's so heavy." And Soul's like, "Well, Maka carries me around all the time, like it's no problem." So I think that's funny. And let's see, Liz and Patty, of course, I've already talked about. They're awesome. They always help Kid out the best they can, and they came from the streets, so when Kid found them, he kind of helped them out because they were living on their own on the streets. Had to be pretty much street punks in order to get what they needed to survive, and they're very grateful for Kid coming along and asking them to be his weapons, and now they don't have to deal with that in their life anymore. So I like those two. They're great. They're total opposites. Patty's like so hyper and crazy and random and just like a kid almost. She's just like, ah! And she's always talking about animals and traps. And then Liz is the more adult one, I have to say. And she is the older one anyway, so they're cool. Now on to the guy characters. Of course, like I told you, Kid is my favorite. He's awesome. As much as I love his symmetrical rants and stuff, his story, especially dealing with his dad later in the show, gets a little more deep and dark. And he has to be more serious along the way. So as the show progresses, he gets more serious. And he goes on these missions for his dad, and he starts seeing something that perplexes him, and he has to like solve a mystery of some type, and he ends up finding out some things that I'm not going to spoil or anything, but he helps his dad the best he can, even though he doesn't always trust his dad in certain matters, but it gets really good. Blackstar, like I said, 50-50. Not sure about him. He's still cool, yet sometimes he annoys me, so it depends on the episode and the plot. So, as for some of the teachers, Stein, I feel bad for him toward the end of the series, but he still kind of creeps me out, the fact that he likes to dissect things, and he's like that. But as a good teacher and good friend for all the students, he's awesome, I have to say. And they try and help him out. As for Spirit, he is hilarious. I'm so glad he's in the show. Vic does a great job of his voice too, and so does the Japanese actor for that guy. It's just so sporadic. He's awesome. As for Sid, he's okay. He's not one of my favorite characters, but I still like that he's in the show, and I do feel like his character is a good one they put in the show. As for the villains are awesome. Some of the villains I wish weren't villains because they're just that awesome. Especially Medusa, she's cool. I love Medusa, she's awesome. Probably one of my favorite anime villains ever. I love her arrow attacks and all that. It's pretty sweet. If only she wasn't evil. Darn it! She's awesome. There's a lot of other secondary characters, like some other witches, one that looks like a frog and one that's like a mouse, and then there's Travis Willingham's character, which is called Free. He's like a werewolf man of some type, and he's like a magic eye and everything, and he's kind of cool. Yeah, there's all these other Death Sides you'll learn about later in the series, and they're pretty awesome as well. But other than that, I highly suggest this show. I gave it a... I don't like to rate shows because then I don't know, I just don't feel like rating shows like out of 5 stars or 2 thumbs up or whatever. I just highly recommend this show to anyone who likes comedy. This has so much comedy in it. Great music. Great plot. And a lot of twists and turns in that plot. Although, I've read the manga, and the manga's plot, of course, is a little better because it keeps going and going. but I still really, really love the anime and its plot towards the end. I know not all fans do, but I really like it. The characters are great. Characters are so unique, and they each have their serious and funny sides, and it's just, I just love the great uniqueness of the characters and how they are used in this plot. Just the whole concept of everything in this plot, with the fact that Lord Death is this funny guy who's like a principal of a school instead of this evil, I will kill everyone, Death kind of Grim Reaper character. And just that cool twist on it, and making him all serious on sometimes and then happy the other times, and he just likes to joke around all the time. He's cool. And then the whole concept of the show being kind of like Halloweenish, but not over Halloweenish, and still heartwarming at times. Especially, you know, Sola and Maka, sometimes those moments between those two are just so heartwarming. They're such good friends. I just love those moments with those two. Especially when Maka's trying to help Sol in a couple later episodes when he's been hurt and some things are happening to him. Oh, those two. I ship them as a couple too, of course, but whether or not they would become a couple, they're just great friends, and I love those moments. They're so heartwarming, and between all the characters and their weapons, there's just a lot of heartwarming moments between them, and between them and the teachers and Lord Death and stuff. So it's just a great show. Any anime fan should totally at least check it out, see if they like it. I love it, and I hope you enjoyed this vlog about it. Again, this is the Soul Eater vlog, and I'll talk about more shows later. I have so many shows to talk about, it's just not enough time, or when I'm in the mood I'll do it, but I'll talk about more shows later. If you like the show or want to talk about anything, please leave your comments in the box. Thank you! See you next time!